What's up, guys? Coming back at you with another Commander deck tech. This time we are going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of usually trying to go for the optimized build, I'm going to be doing a budget deck tech for one of my patrons, Frogger Pirate 999. Thank you so much for your support. He basically just wanted me to make a Zurgo Helm Smasher deck, preferably a Voltron build here. The restrictions here were that he didn't want any of the swords or any of the fetches because those are really expensive, and he had a smaller budget when it comes to building a Voltron deck. He never did it before, so he wanted me to do a deck tech for him, and I am glad to do it. I've always loved Zurgo Helm Smasher. I feel that if you have a commander to go budget with, he's not a terrible option to do so. He doesn't have all these complex interactions that you have to load your deck with a ton of support for. He's just simply a guy that wants to turn sideways and deal a shit ton of damage to your opponents, and he is very good at doing that. For those of you who don't know what he does have haste. He's a 7/2 for 5 mana in Mardu colors. He attacks each combat if he is able to, and he is indestructible as long as it's your turn. So he's pretty much just going to keep smashing, and there's very little your opponents can do about it. They have to exile him or force you to sacrifice him in order to deal with him, as long as it's your turn, of course. And whenever a creature dealt damage by Zurgo Helm Smasher dies, he gets a +1/+1 counter. He can get bigger. He has potential to get even bigger by his own effect there. But really, it's pretty straightforward. All you want to do is just put some equipment on him, make him nastier, bigger. He's just going to keep swinging in, and you need to take advantage of the fact that he is indestructible as long as it's your turn. So let's start off with the lands here. Some noteworthy ones would be Ash Barrens. It is about a few dollars. It isn't super expensive, but since we don't play the fetches, we do need a way to get basic lands if we need them. This is not a bad inclusion, but it is noteworthy. It is a few dollars there. We play Clifftop Retreat, Dragon Skull Summit, and Isolated Chapel. I feel if you're going to be playing on a budget, all three of these are pretty nice. Get them while you can. I have a feeling they're probably going to go up because of Ixalan. Then we have Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion, Vault of the Archangel, and Cathedral of the War. All of these serve a combat purpose. Sunhome can give him double strike, Vault of the Archangel can give him death touch and lifelink, and Cathedral of War gets him the exalted trigger, so he gets +1/+1 if he's the only one that's attacking. Those are basically our only noteworthy lands. The rest are just your simple come into play tap, they gain you life lands, your command tower, stuff like that. Now we go into Artifact Rampants. Again, it's pretty simple staples that have been reprinted a decent number of times, so they're pretty cheap. Sol Ring, Rakdos Signet, Boros Signet, Orzhov Signet, Felwar Stone, Commander Sphere, Darksteel Ingot, and Mardu Banner. All of these are extremely cheap, but they're effective for what we want to do here. We just want to ramp up and get the right mana fixing. Our main goal here is to get out Zurgo as quickly as possible. It is a bit harder to do that on a budget, so we need to play as many of these as we can. Commander Sphere and Mardu Banner both give you the option of sacrificing them to draw a card, so those are multi-purpose. Now we move on to equipment, because that is easily the most important part of this deck here. We start off with a Sword of the Animus to get land drops. If we happen to miss any, we get them. If we keep getting our land drops, we just thin our deck out to the point where we don't top deck them. We don't want to top deck lands in any deck, really. But in a deck like this that doesn't always have the best card draw, you need a way to prevent yourself from drawing cards that are practically just dead. Trailblazer's Boots gives him non-basic land walk. Practically 99% of the decks in this format play non-basic land, so shouldn't have to worry about that. Fire Shrieker gives him double strike. Kusari Gama is a very interesting one, and you can pay the activate ability there to pump him up, but it's not really that big of a deal. Mainly, you want to mow down your opponent's creatures. If it would deal damage to a creature your opponent controls, it deals that much damage to each other creature they control. It gives them incentive to not block him and just take the damage, although they probably don't want to do that either, but if they don't, they're likely going to risk losing a lot of their creatures. Then we have Loxodon Warhammer, gives trample and lifelink, gives a little buff there as well. Just good keywords. Sword of Vengeance, same thing, just gives good keywords here. Main ones being First Strike, Vigilance, and Trample. Then we have Whisper Silk Cloak. Not always the best thing to give him Shroud, but when you can also make it to where he's unblockable, you can always find a way to squeeze it in there. Godsend is incredible. Gives him +3/+3, and whenever he would be blocked, you get to exile one of the creatures that's blocking him. You have a way of dealing with problem creatures. Assault Suit is hilarious in a multiplayer game, giving them to each of your opponents, and they have to attack each other. They can't attack you. It's just going to allow Zurgo to deal more damage. Then we have a newer card here. It is a little bit more expensive. I think it's around $5. Hammer of Nazan. Enters the battlefield. It can automatically attach to Zurgo and does the same thing for your other equipment. Gives them +2/+0 and indestructible. Makes all your other equipment relevant and much better. World Slayer is hilarious. If you're able to connect to a player, it's basically game over. You've won. Well, he stays on the field, so does World Slayer. So each time you keep attacking, whatever they can try to do just gets destroyed over and over again. Argentum armor gives him +6/+6. Whenever he attacks, you get to destroy a target permanent. Then we move on to some awesome creatures here. We have Mother of Runes. So much value in a 1-drop. Being able to give Zurgo or herself protection from any one color until end of turn is always awesome. Sram Senior Edificer allows you to draw cards off of each equipment that you play. Super useful in a deck like this where we don't always have the best card draw. Grand Abolisher, also very important. We don't want our opponents being able to respond with counter spells or exiling spells or anything like that that could really mess with our strategy. Solemn Simulacrum, very useful, gets us a land, and when it dies we get to draw a card. Iroa's God of Victory gives our creatures menace, so Zurgo's even harder to block. Bruce Tarl, because whenever he enters, you get to give a target creature double strike until end of turn. Then we do play Stonehewer Giant, which is a little bit more expensive. You could cut it if you don't necessarily need it, but what it does is you can pay the 2 mana there, tap them to search up an equipment card. We do also play Godo Bandit Warlord, which does a very similar thing on ETB. It's not reusable, but it's an option if you don't necessarily need Stonehewer Giant. You have Godo as well, and Godo does have the benefit of giving you an extra combat step, so if you're able to give Zurgo Vigilance, there's an upside there. We also play Sun Titan because we have a lot of good equipment that is CMC 3 or less. If we're able to get those back, it's always nice. Then we play Aurelia the War Leader. Getting an extra combat step is never a bad thing in this deck. Then we move on to the enchantments. We only play 3 here, but they are pretty decent. We play Sigarda's Aid, gives our equipment spells and our spells flash. It's good for timing, and whenever an equipment would enter the battlefield under our control, we get to attach it to a creature we control. It's a decent amount of value out of a 1-mana enchantment. Then we play Duelist Heritage, gives our Zurgo a double strike, and then we play Phyrexian Arena for that extra card draw during our upkeep. Then we move on to a very important part of the deck, and that is removal. Mardu has a huge strength in removal, and we need to take advantage of that. Luckily, a lot of these options are very good while also being very budget. We of course play Swords to Plowshares, Staple, and Commander. Terminate allows us to destroy a creature and it can't be regenerated. Chaos Warp allows us to deal with permanents in general. Mortify allows us to deal with a creature or an enchantment. Anguished Unmaking allows us to exile a non-land permanent at the cost of 3 life. And Utter End allows us to do the same exact thing for 4 mana. Then we move on to our board wipes. We play Day of Judgment, Rout, good value there at instant speed. Chandra's Ignition, dealing 7 or more damage to each other creature, is very deadly. And Fumigate gives us the opportunity of gaining some life. Merciless Eviction gives us a ton of ways to deal with specific card types, and it exiles them, so it's a pretty good wrath effect as well. Then we move on to very devastating board wipes. Well, these are pretty much going to deal with just about everything. We play Yokolops and Obliterate. Main thing here being is that they destroy creatures and lands. Obliterate has the benefit of being uncounterable. Once you do this, it's very similar to World Slayer. You pretty much win the game. Zurgo's going to be the only thing left, hopefully, and you're just going to be swinging out and winning the game at that point. So these are definitely hilarious cards if you are on a budget and you do want a way to win easily. But anyway, guys, that was my deck tech for Zurgo Helm Smasher. Let me know what you think. I think it's pretty cool. I think that for a budget option, you have a lot of power with Zurgo. 7 power, indestructible with haste, that you can get out as soon as turn 4 or turn 3 with this deck. The equipment package is going to be a lot better if you include things like the swords. However, as is, you have a lot of different equipment that really works well. And yeah, it could use that extra push of, say, a Sword of Feast and Famine, or it could use the consistent mana base that you usually get with the fetch lands. However, you get a very fun to play with deck here that isn't too complicated. It's straightforward, but yet you have so much power with the commander here, and I think it's definitely something that you can compete with. The overall cost to build this deck isn't that expensive, guys. It's only about $130. It's very difficult to build a deck that can still compete while also being under 100, so keep that in mind. The upgrades involved would probably push it over 200. Want to give yet another shout out to Frogger Pirate 999. He's the one that requested this video. Want to thank him for being an awesome patron. And if you want to get in on this, all you have to do is check out my Patreon. The link for that will be in the description below. Could definitely use you guys as supporters for my Patreon, and I would love to make more content for more people. If that sounds like something you would want to do, again, the link will be in the description below. Anyway, guys, you have a wonderful day. Void here, signing off.